Okay, I'm Hal Riegger. I'm down here in Fairhope. This is May 1992, and I'm a graduate of the class of 1931, 61 years ago. I came here as a second year of junior high school in 1925, and was put back a year into the first year of junior high school, which I didn't like very much. But I found out later that, of course, that made me join the best class in school. I heard about the organic school originally up in Greenwich, Connecticut, where I went one summer. And I don't know where my mother heard about it, but I was sent up there, and Mrs. Johnson was at that time directing that school. Apparently my mother liked the school. Come time to go to a full year of school in the fall, she chose to send me down here to Fairhope. I think it was financial reasons. I think this was a little cheaper than Edgewood would have been. But anyway, fortunately, Mrs. Johnson severed connections with Edgewood that year, as I understand it, and came here. So I tell people about the organic school, and I try to think of what makes it different from other schools. First of all, I came from an Episcopal boys' school, which was terrible, very bad. All the things a school should not be, and I hated the place. So I came down here, and the bay was fun to swim in, and there were horses to ride, and a lot of places to explore, all of which I did. Rented a horse and went horseback riding all day, and swim in the afternoon and so on. And this went on for about 3 weeks, and I began to feel kind of alone. I was the only one doing this. So I quit and I came to class. And I never missed a class after that. Of course, everybody knew what I was doing. They knew I was cutting school, but nothing was ever said about it. And as I became a little older, I realized that I was being tested on a matter of self-discipline there, instead of outside discipline. And I like that. And this is one thing that, to me, typifies what the organic school stands for. We develop our own sort of discipline and initiative and so on. The crafts interested me most here. I obviously was developing artistic bent, or had it already, and was developing some of the talents necessary. Clay in particular and pottery ultimately became my profession, and I became a teacher also. I think the last year I came to the organic school, 31, the source of my financial source for sending me to school suddenly stopped. It happened to be a relative of mine. And all of a sudden, some of the rest of the family had to scrounge real hard to find some of the money to send me here. It was not all found, but there was an arrangement made whereby if I fixed the clay for everybody to use and fired to kill some and did some work in pottery, well, that would sort of pay for the rest of it. And I think that's where I really got started in the pottery series.
You've been talking about your interest in the pottery, in the clay, and you haven't spoken about your academic program. And the reason I would like you to speak some of, and quite a lot of that, Harold, because you're the 50th that we have taped now for the museum. And I have a concern that developed after we had taped about 20, that all they wanted to talk about was the activity within the school. And then my concern was, well, if these are researched 50 years from now, people are going to say, oh, that was an art school, which of course it was not.
Well, it was, but it was more.
It was much, much more. It was all three of the mind and the spirit and the physical. So then I had to say, please tell us about the academics also, and then how did you adjust within your going on to college, and what were your deficiencies, and that sort of thing. So augment a little then, if you will, on the whole structure of it.
Well, the honest truth is I don't remember the academic subjects very well. I remember one or two teachers whose classes I didn't much care for, and a couple of others whose classes I enjoyed very much. I enjoyed chemistry, for example. Math I didn't care for. French was hard for me. History was fun. And I don't know how much I remembered of the academic subjects, but I think back and I think more what I learned here was not so much learning and remembering things, like filling my mind up with information, as it was knowing how to go get the information when I wanted it.
That's what she wanted in her philosophy, only to know where to go get it when you needed it.
Well, I would say the school was successful in that way. I've thought many times I must be something remiss or dumb or something because I don't remember certain things, all right, that I learned here. But I go find out when I want it, you know. So anyway, that's the way I remember that. But I do remember the non-academic things more than I do the academic ones. The folk dancing, the crafts, and some of our social things that went on, you know.
To me, that also makes a very important point in that growth, and we should be growing right to the day we die, that what is so important in our life is activity. And that's activity.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what is denied in our educational system today, I think, to a great degree, is that what they want to do, even in kindergarten, is to teach a child to sit.
Mm-hmm.
That's very destructive.
Mm-hmm. I think another aspect of sort of our evidence of the philosophy of the organic school came along in my, I think it was a junior year, say, and I became very interested in fire, in the part that played in pottery, the kiln, which was fired with kerosene, and you had to have a fire going and so on. And fire became to fascinate me. I remember very clearly too, when I was a kid, I must have been playing with fire because I remember my father holding a match under my finger. But I became fascinated with fire here that year and built little things out of bricks or hollow tiles or what have you, just boxes or something, build fire, watch flames go up, so on. Then I got to building little tiny kilns around. And this went on all year. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. And apparently it was perfectly all right. I didn't harm anybody, I didn't destroy the landscape, I didn't steal something that I shouldn't have. It was all okay. And I learned a lot. And it's to the point now where, as a professional potter and as a teacher, there is no kill or situation in ceramics involving fire, but what I can understand, I can cope with it very well. And it goes back to that year of experimenting, being allowed to play with fire safely.
Very good.
You know, I think. It's hard to put your finger on what the advantages are, just for me sometimes, except I connect something like that up, those two things, my professional life later with that year of building these little things around here.
And of course, fortunately, you liked chemistry and you needed that in your pottery.
Yeah. Oh, I ran into a little trouble in college in that chemistry was, well, it wasn't hard for me. It wasn't that easy either. I got it all right. I had to learn how to teach it again to other students in a way that I thought was more simple than the way it was taught to me. When I went to college, my first year as a first-year freshman, there were something like 90 people in the freshman class, and we were listed according to our I'll go to grade with me, you know. I think I was number 75, and I was really miffed after coming from the organic school not being graded. Wow. But the second time we had exams, I was up to 23, and so after that it went right on up, and so it's okay. Well, it was a little bit of a shock at first.
Tell us too, Harold, how you went into the beyond your pottery, which is wonderful, and we have this marvelous tape of what you did since you're here this week out with Tom Jones at the pottery. But tell us a little about how you became interested and fascinated with the trains and what you've done with that in your life.
With which?
Train.
Oh, trains?
Yes.
That has nothing to do with the organic school.
Well, of course it
philosophy.
does, because of the way you used it in your creative ability with your boxcars and what you've done with it. It's very creative.
Well, like a lot of doddering old idiots my age, I became interested in trains, real ones and model trains. That's being derogatory to myself and other people in my age bracket. But I don't know. Some people get interested in them and do something about it, and I did. I got deeply interested in it. And for 10 years or more, all I could think, talk, sleep, eat was trains. And everybody thought I was kind of a kook. But I've had the fun that other people have had, and then having been an artist and a potter in previous years, I can't help but look back on it and perhaps unnecessarily try to justify it. You don't need to justify it. I mean, it's play. Go ahead and play and have fun. But I felt a need to sort of justify it in a way, and I do see it as an art form. When you are creating scenery in miniature and trying to create scenes that convince other people and delight them, you're dealing with art. You're dealing with theater, with drama, with the stage and so on, lighting, perspective, the effect that colors have on the appearance of distance. So on, all this comes into play. And it's a lot of fun and it's challenging. It's more than just play, it's challenging. And it delights me to see people who come to not only my little layout, which is in a real boxcar, but places other people have layouts, and they come in and their smile comes on their face right away. And see these little trains running around. And even these real macho men, you know, hey, look at that, wow. You know, and they're just wiped off their feet. I used to have a policeman friend that came down. He was interested in trains. And he'd come down to the house and leave his car outside with the radio on. And I should come in sometime and be there for 3/4 of an hour. And I began to wonder what the neighbors were thinking. This police car coming down quite often. The radio giving him instructions and so on.
But Hal, the point too with yours, you used all natural materials,
Oh,
your
yeah,
rocks, your whole thing, and your setup. And those who are listening at this tape, if they should come to the museum or want to know more about you, you know, there's going to be, in the scrapbook, there's going to be a whole story of your training and your pursuits. Oh, yes.
Well, I did do that, being a potter and an artist, when it came to making the layout for the model trains, the scenery. You're dealing with the land, you're creating land forms, either flat or mountains or what have you. And in a sense, you're dealing with the earth. So you deal with the earth. You go out and get some dirt. You glue it onto whatever you're working with, and it seems perfectly natural. This is what you're trying to say, and so why not use it? But it strikes me so funny how many people don't think in that direction at all. They think of a hobby store and what kind of paint can I get to make this look like dirt, you know. And they're walking right through the dirt to go to the hobby store to buy the paint. And there's now even a firm that packages for $1.75, 1.5 pound of clean sifted dirt. You can buy this in the hobby store. I think it's, well, I don't know, did that come from the organic school? Did it come from being an artist by nature or what? I don't know what. But I used that in the model layouts. And clay, used clay to make certain things, and earth.
And Harold's also written 5 books. And there again in the museum, he's given us, which is very gracious of him, he's given us a Japanese China.
Is this the book you're talking about?
No, the tea ceremony.
Oh, the tea bowl.
The
This
tea
is a Japanese ceremonial tea bowl.
Ceremonial tea bowl is beautiful. And he makes these, and it takes a lot of time and special abilities. They're very expensive to buy. Now, he wrote a book on that. He's also written a book on this primitive firing that we have a videotape on that he's been doing since he's here in Faro. And this is fired actually above ground with a fire built around it. And he's graciously given us what he's produced since he's here. And he's done that all over the Northwest.
Okay, cut it. Would you mind?
Okay, Harold is holding a bowl that has been done in the primitive way of firing and making, and he's done that since he's here. And he's leaving that with us for the museum. And Harold, if you will explain the process and show the bowl in its entirety.
Okay, it's handmade, not on a potter's wheel. It happens to be made from clay we got out of Clay City, which is about 9 miles east of Faro, with some very red, wonderful orange-red sand from near Daphne up north here, mixed in with that. And the form is a very simple form, somewhat derivative of forms made by the Native Americans and other primitive cultures. These are handmade and they're dried and they are fired on the ground underneath wood or cow dung or animal dung or leaves or something like that. There is no structure in which they're put like a kiln. It's just in the open. And the firing is very quick, only about an hour, hour and a half at the most, and they're ready. They're never glazed, but through use the interior will become coated with what? Food, grease, oil, something, I don't know. Food is wonderful when it's baked in these things. It seems to taste, so much better. But anyway, it's one of 2 techniques that I sort of latched onto in my profession, about which I've written a book also, which this is what I call the primitive pottery. It's primitive only in the sense of the techniques that are used and the materials, but takes a great deal of skill, really, more skill doing this than it does when you're working in a very fully equipped shop. So this is one example of the 2 major kinds of pottery that I've been doing. I've done all the other things too, but these were ones that I emphasized.
And the black on it is actually because of the fire, isn't it?
Yeah, there's realize that this is this way with wood laying all over it, burning. And where a piece of wood will be laying against it, it will make a mark like that, black mark. And then when the wood burns away, if it burns away and nothing is left touching, it will be reddish like this. These are chance markings that the fire makes.
And there were half a dozen pieces of various sizes done at the same time, fired at the same time.
Yeah.
And one of the larger one burst. And that's because it had not been dried sufficiently. Isn't that true? It had too much moisture in it, in the drying.
Yeah.
And then it actually in use, right away, you can use it, bake in it. Finally, it would even hold water.
hold water, and I put things like this right over a campfire and boiled water for coffee right away.
And just made out of our local clay with sand added to it. And most potters now are bringing in clay, buying it. And this is, I think, remarkable. Harold's done this by taking out these people for a week all over the Northwest and finding the local clay, whatever. All right, that was good, and I think